And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are doing our Bahrain Grand Prix preview. Yep, stay tuned. We've got a bit of news coming up as well in relation to the Bahrain Grand Prix. We'll have our predictions. We'll be looking at last year's result, which you can see to, the left of me or the right, I think? Left, yeah, as you're looking at it. And we're also going to get into what the strategy was last year and a lap around the track as well. But let's get into what else is kind of coming up. So, Lando Norris downbeat on his Bahrain Grand Prix chances. We've got Ricciardo predicting who's going to be on that podium, and we'll be looking at the strategy. So let's get into the Bahrain Grand Prix preview. Yep, lovely shot behind me, as you can see. Here are the stats for the Bahrain Grand Prix, though. We're looking at a track length of 5.412 kilometres, a race length of 308.238 kilometres. Now, 57 laps and 15 turns for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Interesting, it's been the first race of the year for the last couple of years. Interestingly, though, it's going to be replaced by Australia next year. I digress. So, let's get straight out there. Who is going to win the Bahrain Grand Prix? No surprise as to who I think is going to win the Bahrain Grand Prix. It's going to be this guy here, yep. Absolutely dominant. Who is going to bet against Max Verstappen in the Red Bull? He has been so consistent. He's going to start, he finished last year as he means to start this year, I think, with a victory, and he looked so ominous. People are saying that Red Bull could be even faster than it was this time last year. I don't think it will. I do think other teams are going to be closer. And I think this guy here, yes, who other but Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time champion, is going to be on the podium. And I am predicting he's going to be finishing in second place. Why not Sergio Perez? Well, if you saw our news the other day, the rumour was that Perez is 6 to 7/10 slower per lap than Verstappen was. That was basically from Marco telling Perez to hurry up. Why Lewis Hamilton over, for example, one of the Ferrari drivers? There's rumours going around that Mercedes were sandbagging even more than Ferrari, and GPS data has suggested that it could be as much as 10 kph on those straights. And if that is the case, I think then, if they are sandbagging as much as the rumours, I'm throwing it out there for Lewis Hamilton on the podium. But it was a very, very close call with who I think is going to finish third on the podium. And no, it's not going to be Sergio Perez. It's going to be this guy, Charles Leclerc, who may well, I think, be on the front row. I'm predicting Verstappen's probably going to get pole position, but I think Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari are going to be podium finishes, possibly down in third, only because of those really, really strong rumours coming out on how much the Mercedes were sandbagging. Having said that, truth's going to be told. This time last week, because it's now Sunday, this time next week, sorry. Well, no, won't we? We'll be doing our race review. But I think Charles Leclerc, don't write him or Lewis Hamilton off by any stretch of the imagination. So let's get into then the Bahrain Grand Prix lap. This is on F1 2023, and as you can see, we are riding with the McLaren into that last corner here. And I've left the racing line on, and there we go. You really need a good exit, probably better one than I have. And as you can see here, coming up is this line here is the first DRS. The DRS is, we're past the detection zone, the DRS zone, and all the way down the straight. Sometimes you see 2, 3, 4 abreast. As we're now braking, this is going to be the first chance of overtaking, most likely in the Bahrain Grand Prix after that initial first lap. But what's interesting here, it's not quite a chicane. You've got a kind of like a right hander and then like a left, and people have got that very wrong before, especially when the tyres are starting to wear down. The car, it appears it looks, it's going to be quite loose as you press the throttle down. Now, what's interesting is this is a separate DRS zone. We just passed the detection point, and as you may have seen in 2022, where Leclerc and the Verstappen battle, where Leclerc came back on this straight here against Verstappen. It is shorter than the main straight, but you can overtake here, and it's quite a wide. As you can see, there's loads of track, quite wide there for any overtaking opportunities, and then it gets a bit thin, doesn't it? Any overtaking opportunities here, and as Martin Brundle used to say, the Mickey Mouse slow corners here. I mean, this is another one where it's not going to destroy tyre wear, but when your rear tyres start to go, you're definitely going to be able to tell on those traction zones. And these turn 9 and 10, as we suggested in testing, is really interesting, because this is really see how good the car can handle here. And if you remember, what, last year, wasn't it, that Fernando Alonso overtook Lewis Hamilton in what was a mega move, the move of the Grand Prix, I think. And this is our final detection zone and DRS zone, sorry. As we come here, you do very rarely see passes here, but not too often, simply because this corner here is so fast going into it. And also, of note, if you look at the red and white curbing on the, as you're looking at it on the right, this has been the big bane of the drains in testing. Obviously, you can't, there's no drains there in the F1 23 game, but the drains there potentially could, they were sucked up during testing. I'm hoping, and I think a lot of people are hoping, that they're going to be welded down a lot more, a lot better, let's say. So I don't think the drains are going to be a problem then, as we're coming now into the final sector and the last few corners. I mean, this corner is quite important here, because it's kind of like on the back straight as we're heading out the end of the lap. And if you've got this corner right, you're close to your opponent, you're close to your other driver, and then you get the last corner right, well, then basically that's going to really set you up for that passing move down the pit straight. And you can see we're going past the pits on the right there. So that's essentially the Bahrain Grand Prix track. I think it kind of all reminds of Austria with all those straights, not quite with the undulations, although there is some, but it always provides good racing. Who could forget 2014, when it was Nico Rosberg versus Lewis Hamilton, the duel in the desert? Absolutely, I mean, it was, for me, absolutely fantastic. But yeah, that's the Bahrain Grand Prix track. So let's get into some of the news. But before we get into that, this was last year's results, with Verstappen winning by 11.9 seconds on his teammate Sergio Perez, and it was Fernando Alonso, yes, in the Aston Martin, finishing third, 38.6 seconds down. Sainz 48, the lead Ferrari after Leclerc's problems. It would have been interesting to see. I imagine Leclerc would have maybe fitted somewhere between third and fourth, between Alonso and Sainz, and then Hamilton 50.9 seconds down in the lead Mercedes, which was really poor, wasn't it? Not very good at all. No, most certainly not. So let's get into the other news articles, as I'm actually struggling to find them. Wait, there we go. So Lando Norris downbeat on his chances. This is from planetf1.com, and he opens up on his deep McLaren MCL 38 worries, which is news to me. Everyone said McLaren had a good test. We kind of suggested no, they didn't have a great test, but they were looking good. So Lando Norris, I mean, this is, captain pessimistic, I think, as he was last year. He is really hard on himself. But at what point do you think stop doing it? Sort yourself out. I mean, don't be hard on yourself. Believe in yourself and your team. But there we go. Lando Norris, he gave a clear no to McLaren challenging Ferrari, never mind Red Bull, at the Bahrain season opener. And there's a great sense of intrigue surrounding McLaren heading into this year's campaign, considering how they surged up the running order last year with, let's be honest, they performed almost miracles upgrading what was a disastrous 2023 car. But while Norris was in what's been described as rather a buoyant mood ahead of the pre-season testing, talking of McLaren going into the F1 season on the right foot, it's safe to say he was playing down expectations going into Bahrain. Maybe he is being a pessimist, but he's being tactical with it and wanting to surprise everyone, subverting our expectations. Now, while Red Bull's Max Verstappen set the pace on day one, it was over to Ferrari to top the second and final day. But no one really believes Ferrari is the fastest. Fred Vasseur said Ferrari boss Fred Vasseur said they were on another planet in terms of improvements on tyre management and race simulations to their, that was the Ferrari compared to last year's Ferrari, which is a massive thumbs up. So when asked by Sky's Ted Kravitz as part of the Ted's Notebook programme whether McLaren can match the times Ferrari were delivering, Norris replied with simply no. How about a podium finish? And again, that was a no. And he went on to explain that Bahrain has never been their best track, while he also made the worrying prediction that 23's dominant force Red Bull has extended their buffer over the rest of the field. Bahrain has never been our best track. Even last year when we had a good car, there were a few races we were close to Red Bull and close to Max. I think at the minute they've probably extended their gap to everyone. Doom and gloom for Norris, yes, sadly. Oh, Lando. But let's get into what Daniel Ricciardo thinks could happen. He labels 2 strong favourites for Bahrain Grand Prix podiums after the test. I don't think it's him though, but he felt the need to temper expectations on the chances of a podium for the season open as he plotted how the order, or how he believes the order would look. Now, testing is now in the books, and as we know, it's notoriously very, very tricky to judge. But Red Bull and Ferrari to battle for the first podium. Red Bull are the vast majority of favourites. They've been our favourites, despite obviously Carlos Sainz, 129.9. And from Ricciardo's observations, Red Bull and Ferrari are the best placed teams to make the podium. Slightly wrong to our predictions because we suggested Mercedes will be very much in the mix. But Ricciardo said, I think from from kind of a viewer, it looks like Red Bull and Ferrari would be the strong favourites to be on the podium here in a week. Anything can happen, but I think they certainly seem like they're pretty good at the moment. So yeah, I mean, you can't really argue that much against it. I mean, Ferrari, Mercedes, or even McLaren. I mean, if anyone was on the podium, despite my prediction then being wrong, had it been, McLaren on the podium, I wouldn't be entirely surprised because, excuse me, because I think it is that close. So the Bahrain strategy. Yeah, this was last year's strategies. Hopefully, if we can... There we go. Yeah, this was last year's strategy. So Verstappen, it was a 2-stop winning it. And we've got the C1, which is last year, which was the white hard, the yellow medium, the C2, and the red soft was the C3. But most people, it was Verstappen 2 stops, Perez 2 stops, Alonso, Sainz, Hamilton, Stroll, Russell, and Bottas 2 stops. Some people did more than 2 stops. Norris did loads, but that's because obviously he was kind of like an outlier with the McLaren problem. So kind of expecting the similar, a 2-stop race. I don't know if anyone would risk going for a 1-stop, but hey, you never know. So, as I said, we're predicting Red Bull, surprise, surprise, to win the Grand Prix. Yeah, not really much of a surprise, if I'm honest. If you made it to the end, you're amazing. Like and subscribe if you can. Comment below. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what your predictions are. And we will speak to you soon. Thank you very much.